0512 local time. The Strait of Hormuz. The surface of the water looks perfectly calm, a mirror of polished glass reflecting the first bruised purples and pale silvers of a Persian Gulf dawn. From the flight deck of the U.S. aircraft carrier, the sea appears almost peaceful, an infinite expanse of stillness that belies the violent geography of the region. Early morning light spreads across the narrow strait, turning the water into a sheet of pale silver. Massive tankers, the lifeblood of global energy, move like slow rusted giants along distant shipping lanes. On the deck of the carrier, the air is thick with the smell of JP-5 jet fuel and salt spray. Fighter jets, F-18 Super Hornets, sit chained to the steel deck, their shadows long and jagged in the low light. Sailors walk routine watch rotations, their boots echoing with a rhythmic metallic clang against the non-skid surface. Nothing about the scene suggests danger. Nothing indicates that the world is about to tilt on its axis, but 200 feet below the carrier's keel in the dark, high-pressure layers of the Gulf where the sun never reaches, something moves. It is a mechanical shadow, a predator made of steel and silence, sliding through the cold currents with lethal intent. Inside the Combat Information Center, or CIC, the quiet rhythm of routine operations suddenly shatters. This is the brain of the ship, a windowless cavern, illuminated by the ghostly blue and green glow of hundreds of tactical displays. The air is chilled to protect the massive server stacks that process millions of data points per second. Usually there is a low hum of professional chatter, but today a sonar operator freezes. His eyes lock onto a waterfall display, a cascading stream of acoustic data. On his screen, a faint, rhythmic acoustic signature flickers across the passive sonar feed. It is not loud, it is not obvious. It is a ghost in the machine, a slow mechanical pulse buried deep inside the chaotic background noise of the ocean, the snapping of shrimp, the groan of tectonic plates, and the distant thrum of merchant ships. He leans closer, his headset pressing against his ears. He filters the noise, stripping away the layers of the sea until only the anomaly remains. Possible subsurface contact, he says. His voice is calm, trained to suppress adrenaline. But the words act like a lightning strike in the room. No alarm sounds yet, no sirens. But everyone in the room, the tactical action officer, the sleepers in the back, the high-ranking commanders, looks up. The signal stabilizes. The computer begins its algorithmic analysis. Bearing 147, range 19 nautical miles. The acoustic profile is weak, distorted by the water's salinity, but the pattern is unmistakable to a trained ear. Diesel electric propulsion, submarine. The contact is moving slowly, barely 2 knots, almost drifting through the thermocline layer. This is a place submariners love to hide, a boundary where warm surface water meets the cold depths, creating a physical wall that reflects and distorts sonar waves like a hall of mirrors. The operator marks the track, his fingers flying across the console. Then 5 seconds later, a second tone appears. A second acoustic trace enters the system from a completely different direction. Bearing 161, range 21 miles, another submarine signature. The room gets even quieter, the kind of silence that precedes a car crash. The tactical display updates, the glowing blue icons shifting to accommodate the new reality. 2 underwater contacts are now moving across the digital chart beneath the carrier strike group. Different bearings, different acoustic fingerprints. This isn't a lone wolf, it's a pack. For a moment, nobody speaks. The gravity of the situation settles into the marrow of their bones. Then the sonar console flashes a third time. A third signal rises out of the background noise, fainter than the others, but steady, relentless. Bearing 132, range 23 miles. 3 contacts, 3 submarines, all moving in a coordinated crawl. They are not patrolling, they are not passing through. They are converging on the same target, the carrier. Inside the CIC, the watch officer studies the tactical map. He sees the geometry of the threat. He sees the trap being laid in the dark. Track them, he says. No raised voice, no panic. Just the cold, quiet authority of a man who has rehearsed this nightmare 1,000 times in simulators. On the bridge above, the aircraft carrier continues its steady course, unaware of the crosshairs being drawn on its hull. It cuts a wide white wake through the narrow shipping corridor between the coast of Iran and the rugged mountains of Oman. The ship displaces nearly 100,000 tons of steel and nuclear power. It moves like a floating city, an ultimate symbol of American projection. But beneath the waterline, it has one vulnerability. It cannot hide. Its four massive bronze propellers churn the water, creating a signature that can be heard for 100 miles. The CIC feeds the data into the strike group's network. Within seconds, the invisible web of the Aegis combat system shares the picture. Every escort ship, the destroyers with their vertical launch systems, the cruisers with their radar arrays, sees the same terrifying image. Three red icons crawling slowly across the digital ocean floor. They are moving in a loose triangular formation. The geometry is not random. It is a textbook three-point attack designed to spread torpedoes across multiple angles, making it mathematically impossible for a ship as large as a carrier to evade. Three silent hunters moving into their final firing positions. 5:17 a.m., 200 miles away, high above the Persian Gulf, a maritime patrol aircraft banks slightly east. It is a P-8 Poseidon, the most advanced anti-submarine platform ever built. Inside its mission bay, the air is pressurized and cool. Technicians sit at workstations that look like something out of a high-end Silicon Valley office, but their business is death. They begin the sequence. The belly of the aircraft opens, and they begin launching sonobuoys. Small cylinders splash into the water at precise intervals, deploying underwater microphones on long cables. Passive buoys listen. Active buoys ping. Within minutes, they create a listening grid stretching across 60 square miles of ocean. Each buoy reports back via satellite. Suddenly, one of the buoys triggers, a faint propeller rhythm moving beneath the thermal layer. The signal travels instantly to the carrier. Confirmation. Submarine contact. Then another buoy triggers. Second confirmation. Moments later, the third buoy lights up the network. Three separate underwater signatures, now precisely geolocated. The tactical display aboard the carrier updates again. The red tracks are no longer estimates. They are reality. Range is shrinking. 19 miles, 17, 16. Inside the CIC, the sonar operator adjusts his headset. The sound is clearer now. He can hear the low-frequency thrum of the pistons, the subtle cavitation of the blades. Iranian diesel-electric class, Kilo-class or Ghadir-class. It doesn't matter. At this range, they are all lethal. They are closing. At their current speed, it will take less than 40 minutes for them to enter the basket, the optimal torpedo engagement zone. There are no sirens echoing through the carrier's hallways. The thousands of sailors on board go about their morning, eating breakfast in the mess decks, oblivious to the fact that they are being hunted. But every station inside the strike group's nerve center knows exactly what this means. 3 submarines, 1 carrier. The silent phase of the hunt has just ended. The killing phase is about to begin. 5:29, the ships push through the narrow shipping lanes. The morning sun climbs higher, casting long golden reflections that dance across the water. From the outside, the strike group looks invincible. 2 guided missile destroyers move several miles ahead, their hulls slicing the waves. An escort cruiser trails behind. Helicopters sit ready. It looks professional. It looks predictable. But beneath the surface, the ocean is becoming a graveyard. The sonar picture grows sharper with every passing minute. The 3 submarine contacts have not changed course. They are still closing, slow, careful, methodical, 2 knots. At that speed, a submarine barely disturbs the surrounding water. The acoustic signature is little more than a whisper, but whispers travel far in the cold, dense water of the Gulf. The operator tracks the first contact. Range, 14 nautical miles. The submarine remains deep beneath the thermocline, hiding in the acoustic shadow. But hiding places are never perfect. The second submarine contact adjusts its bearing slightly, just a few degrees, small enough that a civilian radar would miss it. But the carrier's tactical system sees the geometry shift. The 3 submarines are spreading apart, forming a wider triangle to maximize their field of fire. The watch officer studies the pattern. He doesn't need to say it. Everyone knows they are maneuvering for the kill. A carrier strike group is the most heavily defended formation on Earth, protected by layers of radar and electronic warfare. But torpedoes are different. They are the silver bullets of the sea. They come from below where the rules of physics change. 5:31, one of the escorting destroyers, the USS Winston Churchill, activates its hull-mounted sonar. A sharp, metallic pulse explodes outward into the ocean. Pi-ng. The sound travels through the water like a shock wave, hitting the seafloor and bouncing back. Inside the CIC, the display fills with reflections. Pi-g. Another pulse. Every submarine in the area hears it instantly. To a submariner, that sound is the most terrifying noise in the world. It means you have been seen. It means the shroud of invisibility has been torn away. Inside one of the Iranian submarines, the captain listens to the echo through his headset. He knows the Americans are searching, but he also knows he is close, 9 nautical miles. Inside the cramped, sweat-stained control room of the sub, the crew moves like ghosts. No shouting, no rushing. Just the steady, rhythmic preparation of the torpedo tubes. This is what they have trained for. This is the moment they justify their existence. Back above the surface, the strike group shifts its posture. The destroyers spread wider, tightening the defensive screen. On the carrier's flight deck, a Dehulspertruce sprints toward a waiting MH-60R Seahawk. The rotors begin to blur, a low whine rising to a deafening roar. The Seahawk is the Navy's premier submarine killer. Under its belly sits a dipping sonar and a rack of Mark 54 lightweight torpedoes. Within minutes, the helicopter lifts off, its rotor wash scattering spray as it accelerates toward the first contact. Inside the cockpit, the sensor operator watches the digital map update. Range 8 miles, that distance is the red line. Heavyweight torpedoes can travel 20 miles, but at 8 miles, their probability of kill skyrockets. Less time for the carrier to react, less room to hide. Inside the CIC, the tactical officer watches the numbers. 8 miles, 7. The submarines continue forward. No sudden maneuvers, no panic. Just a silent, relentless approach. That calm tells a story. These aren't amateurs, they are professional hunters, and they are ready to fire. 5:41. The atmosphere in the CIC changes in a heartbeat. A sharp acoustic spike flashes across the console. The operator's heart skips a beat. For a fraction of a second, the sound is a blur. Then it becomes the one sound no sailor ever wants to hear. A high-frequency cavitation signature, propeller blades spinning at thousands of RPMs. Not a submarine. Something smaller. Something accelerating at 50 knots. Torpedo in the water. The words scream through the room. The tactical display explodes with activity. A new contact appears, surging toward the carrier. Time to impact, 6 minutes. Then it happens again. Another acoustic burst. A second torpedo launch, then a third. 3 heavyweight weapons, each carrying enough high explosives to snap a ship's spine, are now racing through the water. 3 separate propulsion signatures. 3 underwater predators converging on a single target. Inside the CIC, the watch officer remains a pillar of ice. Carrier to on the bridge, the helm turns hard. The carrier, a 100,000-ton behemoth, begins to lean as it starts a radical evasive turn. It cannot move like a speedboat, but every degree of heading change disrupts the torpedo's acoustic solution. The rudder shifts. The bow swings to starboard, carving a massive arc in the sea. Below the waterline, the carrier's weight shifts, the massive propellers straining against the ocean. 5 minutes to impact. The Seahawk helicopter is already on the hunt. The sensor operator hears the launches. He marks the vectors. He sees a larger acoustic signature below the launch point. Submarine. The helicopter banks hard, dropping altitude until it is mere feet above the waves. The pilot steadies the craft. Target confirmed. The Seahawk releases a Mark 54 torpedo. It splashes into the water, its motor ignites, and it begins its own lethal search. 4 minutes to impact. The tactical officer gives the next order. Deploy Nixie. Along the carrier's stern, a winch spins, unspooling a long cable into the wake. At the end of that cable is the Nixie decoy, a device that broadcasts a massive acoustic signature. It sounds like a carrier. It looks like a carrier to a torpedo's seeker head. It is a digital ghost, a piece of bait designed to lure the weapon away from the hull. Another decoy deploys. 2 acoustic ghosts now trail behind the ship. The first torpedo reacts. Its seeker head, programmed to find the loudest noise, detects the Nixie. On the tactical screen, the red line begins to curve. It's taking the bait. It turns away from the carrier and accelerates toward the decoy. 1 threat diverted, but the other 2 torpedoes hold their course. Their guidance systems are more advanced, ignoring the decoys and staying locked on the carrier's massive acoustic shadow. 3 minutes to impact. The carrier continues its desperate turn. Above the water, the Seahawks torpedo finds its mark. The Mark 54 switches to active homing. Ping, ping. It locks onto the hull of the first Iranian submarine. Inside that sub, the crew hears the death knell. They attempt an emergency dive, flooding ballast tanks, trying to hide in the deep. But the Mark 54 is faster, it's smarter. It ignores the decoys released by the sub. It adjusts its fins. It closes the gap. 200 meters, 100. Then a massive underwater explosion shatters the silence of the deep. A sphere of pressure expands at the speed of sound, crushing the submarine's hull like an aluminum can. On the carrier sonar, the signature of the first sub vanishes into a cloud of turbulence. 1 down, 2 to go, but the danger is not over. 2 torpedoes are still closing on the carrier. Range, 1 mile. Time to impact, 90 seconds. Every screen in the CIC is a countdown to potential disaster. The ship's stern cuts sharply through the water. The second torpedo finally bites on a decoy, veering off into the wake. But the third torpedo, the most modern of the bunch, is wire-guided. Someone inside the remaining submarine is manually steering it, ignoring the decoys, aiming directly for the carrier's midships. 80 seconds. Another Seahawk sweeps low. It has tracked the second submarine. Target acquired. Another Mark 54 drops. The air is filled with the smell of cordite and salt. Below the surface, the second submarine realizes it is being hunted. It turns sharply, but it's too late. The torpedo hits the sub's propeller assembly. A second explosion rocks the strait. 2 submarines gone. Now, it's a duel between the last torpedo and the carrier. 60 seconds to Strait of Hormuz team packed. The carrier is in a full power slide, its massive wake a churning chaos of white water. The last torpedo is 500 yards away. It's closing at 60 feet per second. Inside the CIC, the sonar operator's voice is a whisper. 400 yards, 300. The carrier's hull groans under the stress of the turn. 200 yards at the last possible second, the watch officer orders an acoustic pulse from the carrier's own internal systems, a water hammer designed to shatter the torpedo's sensitive sonar. The torpedo wobbles. Its seeker head is blinded for a fraction of a second. That is all the time the Nixie needs. The decoy signal flares to maximum power. The torpedo, confused and blinded, swerves. It misses the carrier's hull by less than 50 feet, a distance that in naval terms is a coat of paint. It locks onto the Nixie and detonates 300 yards behind the ship. The explosion sends a column of water 200 feet into the air. The shock wave rattles the carrier's plates, but the hull remains intact. In the CIC, the red track disappears. The final torpedo is gone. But the battle isn't finished. There is still 1 submarine left. The third hunter, sensing the destruction of its pack, the third sub attempts to vanish. It turns north, heading for the jagged coastline where the underwater rock formations can hide its signature. But the P-8 Poseidon is overhead. Its sonobuoy grid is still live. The technicians see the ghost moving. They vector the Seahawks. The third submarine is caught in a pincer. It has nowhere to go. It tries to surface to surrender. But in the heat of combat, the protocols are different. A final torpedo is launched. A third explosion shatters the morning. 5:59 local time. The sun is now fully above the horizon. The Strait of Hormuz looks exactly as it did an hour ago, calm, silver, and indifferent. The tankers continue their slow crawl. The carrier completes its turn and resumes its steady course toward the Indian Ocean. On the flight deck, the sailors continue their work. Most of them have no idea how close they came to the end, but inside the CIC, the silence is heavy. The sonar operator removes his headset. His shirt is soaked with sweat. The red icons on the screen are gone, replaced by the steady blue of a clear ocean. The strike group has survived, but the silent war beneath the waves has claimed 3 more shadows. The carrier moves on, a titan of the sea, while 200 feet below, the debris of the hunters begins its long, slow descent to the bottom of the Gulf. The hunt is over, for now. But in these waters, the silence never lasts. Every sailor knows that beneath the calm, the ocean is always listening. Every morning is a gift. Every transit is a gamble. And as the carrier disappears into the haze of the horizon, the only thing left behind is the white wake of a ship that refused to be a victim. The mission continues. The watch changes. The world keeps turning. but the memory of those 50 minutes will live in the dark corners of the CIC forever. End of watch. Clear all tracks. Return to routine. The Strait of Hormuz is quiet once again, but the quiet is a lie. Beneath the waves, the salt water is already beginning to corrode the twisted steel of the three submarines. The currents of the Persian Gulf, ancient and relentless, sweep over the wreckage, burying the secrets of the engagement in silt and sand. Back on the carrier, the admiral enters the CIC. He doesn't say a word. He just looks at the master tactical display. He sees the kill marks being digitally recorded into the ship's log. He knows that in the capitals of the world, phones are ringing. He knows that the quiet encounter he just managed will have ripples that last for decades. But here, on the front lines, there is only the next mile, the next watch, the next ping. The Seahawk helicopters are recovered, their engines cooling with a metallic ticking sound on the flight deck. The pilots climb out, their faces pale, their eyes wide with the realization of what they just did. They saved 5,000 lives this morning. They prevented a global economic collapse, and they did it all before the rest of the world even had its first cup of coffee. The carrier's wake stretches out for miles, a long white scar on the face of the deep. It is a testament to power, to technology, and to the sheer stubborn will of the men and women who sail her. As the sun burns off the morning mist, the Strait of Hormuz reveals itself as the most dangerous piece of water on the planet. And the USS Carrier, the center of the storm, continues its march. It is a floating fortress, a sovereign piece of American territory, and today it's proved that even in the dark, even in the silence, it is never truly alone. The sensors are still listening, the buoys are still reporting, and somewhere deep in the cold, pressurized layers of the ocean, the next generation of hunters is already waiting. But they will have to wait for another day, because today, the carrier won. Today, the silver water remains calm. Today, the hunters became the hunted. And as the day turns to afternoon, the only sound left is the wind across the flight deck and the eternal rhythmic pulse of the sea. The hunt is over. The carrier remains. The shadows are gone. 0600. Resume mission. Steady as she goes. The sheer scale of the engagement begins to sink in for the crew of the CIC. They start the post-action debrief, their voices low and professional. They analyze the acoustic data, looking for any new tricks the enemy might have used. They look at the torpedo trajectories, the decoy performance, the reaction times. It's a science now, a grim, necessary science. Every second of the battle is replayed on the screens. They see the moment the first torpedo turned. They see the second sub's desperate dive. They see the third sub's attempt to hide in the rocks. It's all there, recorded in the cold binary logic of the Aegis system. It's a reminder that in modern war, there is no room for error. One mistake, one missed ping, one slow reaction, and the carrier becomes a tomb. But today the system worked. The people worked. The training worked. As the carrier reaches the open water of the Arabian Sea, the tension finally begins to bleed away. The ship's internal condition zebra is downgraded, doors are unbuckled, sailors move more freely. In the galley, the smell of lunch replaces the smell of ozone and sweat. The world didn't end today, the war didn't start today, but it was close, so close that you could smell the fire. The watch officer takes one last look at the sonar screen before he is relieved. He sees the vast, empty blue of the deep water. He knows that out there, somewhere, there are more submarines, more hunters, more shadows. But he also knows that his ship is ready, his crew is ready, and as he walks out of the CIC and into the bright, blinding sunlight of the hangar deck, he takes a deep breath of the salt air. He is alive, his ship is alive, and for a sailor in the Strait of Hormuz, that is the only victory that matters. The ocean is vast, the shadows are deep, but the light is stronger. For now, the hunt is finished. For now, there is only the sea, and the sea, as always, keeps its own counsel. The transit is complete. The carrier sails on. The silent hunt is over.